Yeah, it is a busy Friday, top of the hour on News Now, and we are coming on the air with a new update on Helene. The deadly storm has now killed more than 40 people, and there are new signs at this hour that the storm is finally slowing down, but it's left a historic path of destruction with record winds and storm surge in some areas across the region. The big concern right now, floodwaters, and we're watching that very closely as we have people across the region. Also at this hour, New York City's mayor pleading not guilty to those stunning federal corruption charges. Our team is live from the courthouse with big questions about his career and his political future. Then a strong finish to the week on Wall Street. How new inflation data out today is giving investors even more hope about the economy. Plus, we'll hear from a professional video gamer who's trying to change how the youngest generation of voters engages with politics. And in our newsmaker, our exclusive interview with billionaire Richard Branson, why his newest project, a free university for people with dyslexia, is very personal for him. Good day, I'm Tom Costello. I'm in for Hallie, and from the Gulf to the Appalachians, millions of Americans are digging out from the aftermath of Helene, once a Category 4 storm and now a post-tropical cyclone, they say. At least 42 people are now dead, including a 4-year-old and 3 firefighters. And in the last few minutes, we're getting an update from the National Hurricane Center, which says there are still risks for catastrophic flooding in the Appalachians and in the Tennessee Valley. The storm slammed Florida's Big Bend region with stronger winds than any other point in history. And listen to this, a 20-foot storm surge, the level that experts say you simply cannot survive. Helene also sparked fires across parts of Florida, with firefighters scrambling to get them under control and get people out. With dramatic rescues, like here, this is stunning, right? The Coast Guard right there, lifting a man and his dog out of the water near Sanibel Island. And this guy had to break out of his kayak in his home just to survive the water that was coming up. We also have an aerial view of Tampa. Recovery teams across the strait have been very, very busy all day, but the threat is still active for states further inland, like Irwin, Tennessee, where helicopters safely rescued nearly 60 people who were trapped on the roof of a hospital. Atlanta, Georgia just experienced its wettest 2 days in that city's history. NBC's drones have captured communities completely covered over by water. Take a look also at Boone, North Carolina, where flash floods remain a very real concern. Something like 4 million people don't have power across the region right now. So our team posted across the region, as we said, but we're going to start with NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, it's no longer a hurricane, but it's still packing a big punch, right? And we're hearing reports of tornadoes now.
Yeah, as far as life-threatening weather goes, again, still has a lot of rain with it, so we can get flash flooding out of this, and the isolated tornadoes as we go throughout the rest of the afternoon. And it's amazing because the storm made landfall, roughly about 18, 20 hours ago, and now it's up here near Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, it's gone so fast. I mean, it's very rare to have a storm do this, but it's also kind of combined with another storm that's over Mississippi, kind of just a regular storm, not a tropical system, and that's why it's all stretched out right now with heavy rain entering central Ohio. It's raining now in southern portions of Tennessee, all the way northern Mississippi. And then on the east side, we got these possible isolated thunderstorms with tornadoes in eastern North Carolina. So now we're calling it post-tropical, and it's still moving at about 17 miles per hour. It no longer has winds that are going to do any damage, but we do have to watch out for potential for isolated tornadoes. And you'll see here our tornado watch for the Outer Banks up to Norfolk, Virginia Beach. That's until 6 p.m. and also here at Roanoke area. And we are watching this cluster right in here near the entering the suburbs here of the Norfolk area. This isn't a radar indicated tornado by Reynolds son. So we'll keep an eye on this, Tom, for any isolated tornadoes. So far today, we haven't had anything too destructive.
Okay, good. Well, listen, walk us through what it looks like right now in the Appalachian region, because we're hearing a lot of reports right now about flooding in North Carolina and also in Tennessee.
Yeah, I think we've seen just, the tip of the eraser on the pencil of all the problems in western North Carolina, in the mountains in eastern Tennessee. So these flash flood emergencies continue. We've got at least one dam that is potentially going to fail. There's many rivers that are in record flood stage. I've seen pictures of the Wendy's in downtown Asheville. The water is up to like halfway through the windows. And so there's considerable flooding. A lot of roads are washed out. It's hard to even travel in the region. Cell phones aren't working. People want to be rescued, but they can't because the first responders can't even get in there. The rain is over with in this region, Tom, but the rainfall totals with this storm, nothing like any of those residents have ever seen before. Easily the worst in history.
Yeah, we've heard from crews in the region who've lost comms. It looks pretty rough. Bill, thank you very much. Let's go to Priscilla Thompson right now. She's in Valdosta, Georgia. Priscilla, walk us through some of the damage that you've seen there, and what are you hearing from people who live there?
Yeah, Tom, well, I'll give you a look at some of the damage that we're seeing in this neighborhood. Take a look at that house back there. There are 3 trees that have fallen just on the backside of that house. And I will tell you, around the front, there are about 6 more that have fallen in that yard. You see all of this tree debris that is along the roadway here, and that is because there are trees on just about every house here. There was one there that crews were able to take off. Crews are working on another one back there, and so it's just everywhere. I spoke to one couple, Bill and Catherine, and they had about 8 trees fall in their front yard, they told me. And they said after a dahlia, they had trees fall in the back of their house, and they had just finished fixing that. And now they're dealing with more damage in the front of their house. They were in their home sheltering last night, and he said when he heard the trees falling, that's when they moved into the hallway and slept in the hallway as all of this was happening. And I want to play for you how he described it. Take a listen.
It sounded like a freight train. I mean, that's pretty much what everyone says, and that's what you experience because that wind was really howling. We just put the back porch back together after 1 year with Idalia. The process starts over again.
And Tom, I'll show you the other big issue here. It is downed power lines like this everywhere because of the amount of trees. There are about just under 1 million people in Georgia without power, 99% of this county without power. So still a lot of work to be done here on just day 1 of recovery. Tom?
Really a great view of what it's like on the ground. And the big concern in that state is flooding as well, right? What are you hearing about flooding across Georgia?
Yeah, a very big concern, especially in Atlanta and some of these areas that aren't used to seeing this amount of rain. The governor mentioned the possibility for landslides. He also talked about the potential for some dams to not be able to hold and some concerns about rivers. And we're just going to move over here so that we can clear the way for traffic to get by. But a lot of concern about flooding because parts of Georgia just have not seen rain like this before. We saw overnight there was a woman with her baby who was rescued from floodwaters as they were rising. And so certainly a lot to deal with here, even though Georgia did not get the storm surge that we saw in Florida. There are still a lot of concerns about potentially devastating flooding that could turn deadly. Tom?
Boy, and it's heartbreaking for the people in that neighborhood who already were picking up from the last storm, and now they're doing it again. Priscilla, thank you very much. Let's go back to Florida. Let's go down to St. Pete. St. Petersburg hit hard by the storm. Marissa Parra is standing by there, and that county there, I understand, trying to figure out just how many people lost their lives because of the storm. What's the latest information from firefighters and rescue personnel?
Hey, Tom. Well, I can tell you that it has been a busy day for first responders who have been doing water rescues all day. The water has been very slow to recede here. I want to show you 2 things. And before I do, I want to be clear that what I'm about to show you is what we have seen up and down the coastline. So over here to my left, you'll see that faint brown line on this home. That is the water line. That is how high the water got just here on this street. And that's up to my chest. That's about 4 feet. And then if you look over to my right, what you're going to see is another thing that we have seen up and down the coastline. First responders responding to a lot of house fires. For one reason or another, flooding tends to do that, especially here. This storm surge, we're told there was a golf cart inside of that garage, and the lithium-ion battery got in contact with salt water. We know just what a fire hazard that can be, Tom. And I also want to take you to what we saw and what we heard inside one of these homes. Looking at it, it's right across the street. These people, this family, thankfully they all have their lives, but they have also lost everything. Here's what we heard.
It's seeing my wife, my daughter deal with this and you know, just feel the anguish and the pain that they're dealing with, because this house was just completely redone.
So, Tom, devastating and costly on so many levels. And I also want to describe what we saw when we were shadowing the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. We're about an hour north of where we are right now. We were inside of this vehicle. It's an amphibious vehicle. It allowed them to travel not just, of course, on the roads, but most importantly, through those flooded streets. And we heard first responders who had been working all through the night. Just that team alone rescued over 20 people, including a 97-year-old woman who needed desperately medical attention, and she was able to get it thanks to them. But some really heartbreaking scenes. And Tom, I will say, I think we're still trying to get the full scope of the damage here. There are barrier islands that we still cannot get into. And so I think that we're still going to see a lot more damage than we realize. And we'll be here to tell that story through its entirety.
My folks live on one of those barrier islands, and they're out of their homes. So you're absolutely right, and this drama continues. We just wish everybody well. Marissa, thank you very much. Wall Street in just the last hour has closed out on a high, posting a third straight positive week. Here's where the stocks finished the day and the week. The Dow jumping 100 points today, closing at a fresh record. The S&P and the NASDAQ pretty much flat today. The move comes after some encouraging inflation data was out earlier today. A key inflation gauge that the Fed focuses on shows that the price people pay for goods and services was actually lower than expected for August. CNBC's Mike Santoli joins me now. Mike, you and I go way back. Talk us through now this new inflation data and what it's showing us. And are investors interpreting this now to suggest that the Fed was justified with the last rate cut and maybe more to come?
Yeah, it fits pretty well into that story of the inflation rate receding toward the Fed's 2% target. This is 2.2% year over year today in the personal consumption expenditures index. And given that the Fed has room to cut rates further, of course, cut rates by 0.5 percentage point last week, probably has another rate cut coming in early November. Maybe it's a quarter, maybe it's a 0.5 point. But the declining inflation thesis has been playing out pretty steadily. It might not feel like it, but the year-over-year rate of inflation is going down, and it's being accompanied by still resilient economic growth. We had some numbers on consumer activity and weekly unemployment claims this week that did bolster the idea that the economy is likely headed for a soft landing.
Yeah, the rate is going down. Prices aren't going down, but the rate is going down.
That's right.
Listen, you know, it's been a 3-week winning streak for Wall Street, and the question is, anybody watching their 401k is asking how high can this go, right? There's been some concern that the market is really too concentrated on just a handful of companies, specifically tech companies. Does that idea still hold? What are the risks right now?
Well, that idea actually perhaps is a little bit less applicable than it was a few months ago. In fact, over the last quarter or so, the big tech stocks have actually underperformed the average stocks. So the S&P 500, it's up 20% year to date. That is a very good year, kind of logged in only 9 months' time. But it has not, in the last little stretch of it, relied excessively on those big tech stocks such as NVIDIA and Amazon and the rest. Now, whether we can keep going higher, obviously, we don't know. We had a couple of 5% pullbacks just in the last 2 months, and it happened when we had some maybe less than ideal jobs numbers, made people doubt the soft landing scenario. So that can happen at any moment, of course. But for now, the trend looks pretty positive.
And unemployment still at, what, a 53-year low, something like that, Mike?
Just up off of that, just over 4%, 4.2. Yeah.
Okay, Mike Santoli, thank you very much. New York City Mayor Eric Adams appearing in a Manhattan courtroom in just the last few hours, pleading not guilty to 5 criminal federal corruption and bribery charges for allegedly receiving free travel and illegal campaign contributions in exchange for favors for the Turkish government. Here's a first look at the court sketches of the mayor before the judge today. It is a stunning moment in New York history. Adams is the first sitting Big Apple mayor in modern history to face criminal charges like these. The question now, though, could these charges force Adams out of office? For now, he's remaining defiant, saying he's not going anywhere. Let's bring in right now NBC's Tom Winter in New York City. Tom, what more can you tell us about what's going down in this New York courtroom? Really a shocking moment that Adams is facing charges from the very city that he runs.
Tom, I'm going to bring you the latest from the courtroom in just a second, but we have late breaking news tonight in details of what is going on in this investigation, which remains very much ongoing. The chief advisor to the mayor of the city of New York, Eric Adams, Ingrid Lewis Martin, was served with a subpoena and had her phone seized by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office after she arrived in the United States, landed back in the U.S. after being out of the country in Japan on vacation. So this is the top advisor to the mayor, who's now had her phones taken, subpoenas were served, and her home was searched, according to our reporting with my colleagues Jonathan Deans and Melissa Russo, following and tracking this. But yet another individual with very close ties, long-term ties to the mayor of the city of New York, now being wrapped up in this investigation, which of course reached a bit of a crescendo involving the mayor yesterday when he was charged, and today in the courthouse behind me, he pleaded not guilty to those charges, which of course involved this effort to get foreign donations in exchange for basically a quid pro quo, is what prosecutors have alleged. There's wire fraud counts, there's the bribery count, and there's the solicitation of those contributions by foreign nationals, all illegal federally. And so the mayor, who's vowing to fight these charges, says through his attorney that they're going to try to ask for a motion to dismiss these charges as soon as Wednesday of next week. The investigative pressure on City Hall tonight ratcheting up even further, Tom.
Two questions for you, Tom. The total number of years potentially he could serve in prison if found guilty. And second of all, the governor could remove him from office. How likely is that?
Right. So from a sentencing standpoint, if he's convicted, some of these charges carry up to 20 years in prison. Some are 10 years in prison. It's very unlikely, as you well know, Tom, as our audience knows, for anybody to get the actual maximum here unless it involves violent crime. So it's unlikely they'll be hit with the full amount if he was to be convicted. But certainly jail time is a very real possibility. On the political front, you mentioned the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. She's got some decisions to make. She does have the power to remove the mayor of New York City, but it's not something that's really been done in modern times. And typically this is something you would think that if it got to a certain point from a political pressure standpoint, and this is really the challenge, I'm told, from within inside City Hall right now. Nobody's picking up the phone to call Mayor Adams and saying, hey, what new program can we launch, or what new business idea can we put together with the city? That's really the problem. And do we get to a point where there's such political stalemate in New York that the mayor is faced with no other option but to consider his option of leaving office? So that's something we'll have to watch through the weekend. Of course, it could break the other way, and we'll just have to see what's going to continue with this ongoing investigation, Tom.
Yeah, and the potential collateral damage, the fallout, because you've got some very tight congressional races there in New York, right? So potentially, this could also impact those races. Tom, we'll watch it closely. Thank you very much. Good reporting there. All right, ma'am. Also today, the Israeli military says it targeted and struck Hezbollah's headquarters in southern Beirut, with heavy smoke pouring from the strikes in the area. An Israeli official tells NBC News the target was Hezbollah's leader. We do not know yet whether he was in fact killed. The attacks over the last few days have killed more than 700 people in Lebanon. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today defended Israel's strikes in Lebanon during his speech at the UN General Assembly. Take a listen.
As long as Hezbollah chooses the path of war, Israel has no choice, and Israel has every right to remove this threat and return our citizens to their homes safely.
He says Israel will fight until it, quote, achieves total victory. Matt Bradley is in Beirut with more on today's strikes.
Yeah, we were standing right here at this hotel room, and it was just right over my right shoulder in the southern Beirut neighborhood of Dahia. That is a Hezbollah stronghold, and the Israelis announced that they had struck intending to hit the head of Hezbollah, its Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, in what looks like, or what they described as, multiple strikes around the same neighborhood. Now, it looks as though multiple buildings were completely destroyed. If you're looking at that footage now, there were a handful of deaths. Those are probably set to go up probably pretty dramatically in the next several hours and days. If you look at that destruction, it was pretty comprehensive. But this is also going to have major political impacts depending on whether or not Hassan Nasrallah was in fact killed. Regardless of whether that happened, it looks as though Hezbollah is probably going to have to respond to this in some way. They've been firing missiles into northern Israel for much of the past year, but they've been intensifying their attacks as Israel has expanded their attacks against Hezbollah in just the past week. It's going to be hard for Hezbollah to differentiate what they've been doing for the past week and really show that they're responding to this attack in Dahia. But it looks as though they have kept quite a bit of their arsenal in reserve, including their more sophisticated weapons, like some of their targeted missiles, which are thought to number in the several hundreds. Whether or not they choose to use them now, or whether or not Israel follows this up with a ground invasion that could lead to even more destruction and possibly many more deaths among the civilian population, well, that is going to determine how things go from here in this very volatile situation.
Okay, Matt Bradley, thank you very much. Stay safe there in Beirut. The Justice Department here at home has announced charges against 3 Iranian nationals, accusing them of hacking into the Trump campaign. Take a listen now to how the AG describes the scope of this alleged cyber attack.
The operation targeted the email accounts of current and former American public officials, journalists, and most recently, individuals associated with U.S. political campaigns.
The Attorney General there saying that the hackers tried to give the stolen info to the Biden campaign, part of a bigger effort by foreign governments to interfere in the U.S. presidential election. Garland adds that both the Harris and Trump campaigns are cooperating with the investigation. Let's bring in now NBC's Ken Delaney, who covers the Justice Department for us. He's been on top of the story. Ken, these guys live in Iran. Highly unlikely that they'll ever be arrested unless they decide to vacation in Miami Beach. So what does the DOJ hope to achieve with these charges?
Or go skiing in the Alps, Tom. Yeah, that's right. So the primary objective here is not to bring these guys to justice. It's really to publicize this Iranian interference effort in American politics, and it's part of a series of efforts to do that. There was an indictment of RT a few weeks ago accused of paying Americans $10 million to spread Russian propaganda. There have been regular intelligence briefings. This is in contrast to what happened in 2016 when the Russians interfered in the election and the U.S. government said nothing about it until much later. They're trying to get the word out, Tom.
We should also underscore that while Iran allegedly gave this information to the Biden administration or the campaign, the Biden campaign, as I understand it, did not do anything with it and handed it over to DOJ, right?
Well, they didn't reply to the emails. That's what that's what the DOJ said. The Biden campaign said they never even opened them, Tom.
Okay, well, disinformation and cybersecurity threats surrounding this election, they're coming from all corners. We got Russia, we got China, we got Iran. How can the feds prepare and then counter this?
That is a great question, and it's one I put to the Attorney General today, which is, if there's a fake video depicting a candidate or depicting problems at a polling place in the 48 hours before the election, what's the government going to do to flag it to the American public? Here's what he said.
It's an all-of-government approach in combination of our intelligence community and the FBI and federal law enforcement. We are working round the clock to ensure that we get the quickest information about such an attempt and that we are able to alert the American public in as close to real time as possible.
The problem, of course, Tom, is that if the FBI says something's fake, there are millions of Americans who may not believe it, given the state of our politics, Tom.
Yeah. All right. NBC's Ken Delaney, and thank you very much. Coming up from us, the pictures just into us of Kamala Harris landing in Arizona ahead of a stunning surprise trip to the border on her part. We're going to be live on the ground. And why Chapel Roan says she's taking a break after facing days of online backlash. Back streaming on NBC News Now, Vice President Kamala Harris on the ground for a surprise trip to the southern border tonight. You can see her arriving at the border in literally just the last few minutes here, with Harris tonight expected to announce tighter asylum restrictions, a campaign official tells NBC News. And she's also turning the tables on Donald Trump and taking on his mismanagement or alleged mismanagement of the border. Harris is looking to boost her own profile by taking a tougher stance on immigration. It's a political vulnerability for her, though, as you know, with many polls showing voters think Trump would do a better job at securing the border. Meanwhile, the former president is in Michigan tonight holding a town hall there, just hours after meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky and again vowing to make a deal between Ukraine and Russia that, in his words, would be good for both sides, though light on specifics. Let's bring in now NBC's Gabe Gutierrez, who's traveling with the Harris campaign. He's in Arizona. Gabe, you've got this new reporting that Harris is going to propose tighter asylum restrictions tonight. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, Tom, well, it's partly due to the Harris campaign really trying to distinguish itself in some ways from the Biden administration. As you said, according to a senior campaign official, Vice President Harris will propose extending the threshold. And you'll recall a couple of months ago, President Biden issued an executive action saying that any time that illegal border crossings rose above 1,500 a day for a 7-day average, anytime that happened, they would essentially shut down the border between ports of entry and suspend asylum applications. Well, what Harris plans to propose is she plans to extend the threshold and make it much longer. So not just a 7-day average, but it will have to be longer. We don't know exactly how much, but it will have to be presumably at least several weeks for that number to drop below 1,500. So essentially making it making it harder in order to apply for asylum. And again, this is something that the Harris campaign has been trying to do, especially over the last couple of months, is really sell the image of Vice President Harris as someone who can secure the border. They've been touting her prosecutorial record, and they hope to trip down here to Arizona today, her second since taking office as vice president, and it was more than 3 years ago that she went to El Paso. They hope this trip can help win over swing state voters, Tom.
Just her second trip down there since becoming vice president. That's interesting. This is a really bold choice from her, right? How could what she says tonight change the perception about how engaged she has been on this issue?
Well, you mentioned it, Tom. The Harris campaign has been trying to flip the script, right? Since earlier this year, former President Trump blocked that bipartisan border deal in the U.S. House. She's been blaming him for that, and Democrats really see this as an opportunity. You know, she still trails Trump widely. According to recent polls, a recent NBC News poll showed her 21 points behind Trump on the issue of securing the border. But, Tom, compare that to President Biden back in January. Our NBC News poll found that he trailed Trump back then by 35 points. So Harris has been an improvement, and Democrats think that if she can at least shave off some of those swing state voters, that it may make a critical difference in a battleground state like Arizona, Tom.
Yeah, and optics can do a lot for you, I guess. Gabe, thank you very much. We're glad to have your expertise. You've spent a lot of time there. Thanks, Gabe. To tonight's original reporting now, in-depth reporting on a topic that we've been watching. And tonight we're looking at a surprisingly tight Senate election that could actually determine the chamber's balance of power in November. We're talking about the race in Maryland, believe it or not, between a Democratic county exec and a nationally known former Republican governor, forcing voters to choose between a new face promising change and a familiar one arguing he is the political center in a very blue state. NBC's Antonia Hilton has more.
In blue state Maryland, where Democratic events often look more like family reunions, there's an unusually tight race that could determine the balance of the Senate. Democrats out in full force.
And the key to the Senate majority runs through Maryland.
Asking voters to send Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks down to Washington and not their popular former governor, Republican Larry Hogan. Vice President Kamala Harris holds a 30-point lead here. A new poll has Alsobrooks up by 11, but others have Hogan within the margin of error. And his approval ratings were as high as 70% when he was governor.
How do you reach the split ticket voters who are planning to vote for VP Harris, but who like Larry Hogan? He was their two-term governor.
Yeah, you know what? This race is much bigger than Larry Hogan. Larry Hogan was recruited by Mitch McConnell because they share a goal in mind. They want Republicans to have control of the Senate.
Voters here say this contest comes down to reproductive rights and who they trust to reject a possible national abortion ban. Maryland has enshrined abortion rights, and the state's clinics serve women forced to travel from out of state.
I come from a state where a lot of the politicians didn't agree with a woman choosing her own medical rights. Women should have that choice.
Hogan, who's endorsed by but has long feuded with Trump, argues voters are tired of division and want to elect someone who'll stand up to both parties.
Hogan will be in the middle of the action, representing the center.
His message to voters, he'll be a sensible voice focused on issues like veterans' needs. But Alsobrooks warns he won't be as independent on abortion or gun reform in a polarized Senate. How do you convince people to not believe a guy they've known for a long time?
Well, you know what, his record speaks for itself. But what we know also is that if he's elected, we'll never have a vote on Roan because the Republicans in the Senate will never bring it up for a vote.
In 2022, Governor Hogan attempted to veto and then withheld funding from a law to train additional health care workers to perform abortions, citing safety concerns.
Thanks for being here.
Morning. In an Axios interview earlier this year, Hogan declined to say how he would vote on IVF or to codify Roe v. Wade.
So is that yes?
Whether it's needed or
yes or no?
No, it wasn't a yes or no.
He now says he will vote to codify Roe. His campaign suggested a date and location to speak with NBC News, then said he was unavailable the day of the potential interview. His team told NBC News it's important for the health of our democracy to have two functioning parties, and that as governor, he made sure access to abortion was never a question for Maryland women. And others aren't sure they trust Alsobrooks, a CNN report finding she claimed improper tax deductions on 2 properties. She tells NBC News this was a mistake made after a move and the passing of her parents, and that she's correcting her payments.
I think you need somebody that's a straight shooter. And unfortunately, in today's world, that is few and far between.
And for many Marylanders, Hogan has the familiar face.
I'm going to vote for Hogan just because I thought he did a good job for governor. I don't really know what Alsobrooks kind of is doing.
Even some Alsobrooks supporters still have affection for him.
I liked him as a governor. I'm not anti-Larry Hogan, but I'm anti what he represents.
They're just not sure he should hold that potentially tie-breaking vote in the U.S. Senate.
And Antonia joins us now. Antonia, I was just looking at the polls. The latest ones, I see Alsobrooks up 9, up 12, up 12, up 17. I mean, this is a very blue state, and yet, at the same time, as you mentioned, this abortion issue enshrined in the state constitution also matters to the state.
That's right. So, Tom, there are a few things going on here. The first is, while she's up, Hogan has made up ground similar to that in past elections, going back to 2014. So the fight is still very much on. But you're right, voters have another question, something that's going to be on the ballot for them that's going to motivate them to come to the polls. And that is question 1, an amendment that's all about reproductive freedom in the state of Maryland. The question of whether or not women have a right to make decisions about their pregnancies and then effectuate those decisions, something that Marylanders support in a significant majority. And so it's sort of ironic in a way that a state where abortion is protected, it has become a safe haven for women in states all around who travel into Maryland now to get that care, that there's so much anxiety there. But it is really emblematic of the post-Roe world that we're all living in now, that Maryland feels that kind of anxiety to solve the question, Tom.
We picked the busiest bus stop in all of Maryland for you to stand in front of. Antonia, thank you very much for talking to us, though. Good reporting. We appreciate it. Let's get you over now to the 5 things or team things that you should know about tonight. Number 1, just in the last couple of hours, the U.S. and the Iraqi governments have announced the U.S.-led coalition mission in Iraq is going to end by the end of next September of next year. You'll remember that coalition was formed about a decade ago to fight ISIS. Something like 2,500 U.S. troops are in Iraq and another 900 in Syria. We don't know how many troops might stay in either country. Number 2, Oscar-winning actress Dame Maggie Smith has passed away. You'll remember her from Harry Potter. She was Professor McGonagall. And, of course, from her starring role in Downton Abbey. Her sons said that she died peacefully in the hospital early this morning. She was a legend, and she was 89. Number 3, SpaceX is set to launch its Crew 9 mission tomorrow at the earliest, after delays because of a hurricane-turned tropical storm, Helene. The plan is to send 2 people rather than 4 to the International Space Station for 5 months. And then they will bring back those 2 astronauts who are stuck on the station, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, on the return flight home. That comes in February. Number 4, singer Chappell Roan is pulling out of 2 performances this weekend. She says things have gotten, quote, overwhelming and that she needs a few days to prioritize her health. You'll recall Roan was criticized for an interview where she said she's not pressured to endorse a presidential candidate, and then clarified that she's actually voting for Harris in social media videos. She did not immediately respond to our request for comment. Number 5, live from D.C., it's almost Saturday night. That's right. SNL is back. Season 50 premieres tomorrow. Actress Jean Smart is going to host, and Jelly Roll will be the musical guest. Can we just keep playing the highlights? Coming up from us, the massive strike that could come very soon to the United States and cost the country billions of dollars. Is an 11th hour deal still possible? How will it affect you? And why New York City leaders are actually giving birth control to rats. We'll explain. Back now, and we are just days away from what could be a massive strike at some of the country's most critical ports up and down the East Coast. On October 1st, the International Longshoremen's Union is threatening to walk off the job. The union represents at least 25,000 workers at 14 ports. It's asking for better pay and more protection against automation at ports. J.P. Morgan estimates a strike could cost the U.S. up to $4 billion, make that $4.5 billion each day, and it could have a major impact on what you see or maybe what you don't see on store shelves. Let's bring in now senior business correspondent Christine Romans with more on this. Christine, we've seen these strikes in the past really have a devastating impact on ports. What are the longshoremen demanding, and how might it affect what you and I actually see at our local store?
So they want better wages, but really, you know, the longshoreman boss, the union boss, is really adamant about automation. He is really against it. He wants to preserve sort of the career of the longshoreman, and he's very concerned that they are going to try, he says, that the big shipping companies that make billions of dollars are going to just try to automate out those jobs. So he's really defiant about that point in particular. And you can see just how widespread this is. As you know, this is really how manufacturers get their goods overseas, export their goods overseas, and that's also how importers and retailers get their goods into this country. So a lot of different supplies in your grocery cart or on your shopping trip could see delays and potentially maybe higher prices. So a lot of different things, from cherries to electronics to cars to car parts to canned goods to chocolate. I could go on and on and on.
No, not chocolate. No. So what's the White House saying about this, and might the White House step in?
So, you know, the president does have the authority to break a strike, right? But the White House is saying he does not plan to do that. That is not on the agenda for him. That hasn't been done in a very, very, very long time, right? It's a very, very rare thing to do. He wants them to go back to the negotiating table. But in fact, the port owners, the shippers, the association, the Maritime Association, the Union for the Port Owners and Shippers, you know, they actually are saying that the Longshoremen Union isn't even at the negotiating table. So they've gone to federal labor officials and complained and said, you need to push them back to the table. So they're kind of talking past each other here, and the clock is ticking.
Well, speaking of the clock ticking, guess what? Next week it's October, and the holiday season is getting closer. Is it too early to ask whether a strike could impact what you and I can buy for the holidays, what gifts we could buy?
So I'm told that about 90% of that kind of purchasing has already been done, and those things are in the country in warehouses, ready to go, right? But 10% isn't. So, I mean, maybe. Also, it depends on how long this lasts, Tom. You know, every day of this strike, supply chain experts tell me, would be 4 or 5 days to catch up. So that's just an awful lot of supply chain disruption. So a lot of folks are hoping that this gets worked out in the next couple of days, but it's not looking good.
Well, watch it closely. Christine, thank you very much for that. NBC News covers hundreds of stories each day, and it's awfully tough to read, watch, or listen to everything. So our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions, and we call this segment The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, a major bridge in Los Angeles closed today after a truck carrying lithium-ion batteries overturned and caught fire near the city's port. The LA City Fire Department is letting the fire burn itself out. Since lithium-ion batteries take a lot of water, and there's a concern the runoff could then flow into drains and then into the ocean, and that would create an environmental disaster. No word on what caused the explosion. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. From our Northeast Bureau, people in South Philly were really rattled after hearing this for an hour early yesterday morning. Take a listen. God, goodness gracious. A law firm is apologizing, telling our affiliate that it played the scream as part of a test in connection with a civil rights case against the city. A spokesperson did not reveal any other details. From our Northeast Bureau, New York City, the council there has passed a bill to use birth control on rats. A local rat contraceptive pilot program will soon begin in a small section of the city. And then about a year after that, the city will perform monthly inspections on the area. The program was inspired by New York's beloved Flacco the owl, who died early this year with rat poison, unfortunately, in his system. Coming up from us, how gamers are keeping up with politics on a super popular streaming platform. Okay, so you might have heard of the streaming platform Twitch, where you can watch people battle in games like Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto. Well, now there's another huge genre on the platform, political commentary. Yep, this is how millions of Gen Zers and millennials have been keeping up with the latest election news. As we've reported on this newscast, Trump sees an opening with young men and is catering towards that community online. So we wanted to introduce you to a mega streamer who is resonating with that same demographic, but he's on the left. NBC's Stay Tuned digital reporter Maya England has the story.
Hasan Piker is not your typical political commentator.
Yeah, I am being patronizing. I don't know who the f you are.
You might think of Twitch as a site for gamers, but now millions of people also watch streamers watching the news on the platform instead of traditional TV. And 70% of those users under the age of 35.
Hasan is the biggest political commentator on Twitch.
Hasan's channel, Hasan Abi, was the third most streamed channel globally on Twitch as of August 2024, drawing in over 114 million views and 2.7 million subscribers.
Hasan Abi, he kind of pioneered the space for the style of political coverage he does.
He provides commentary and answers questions live 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for newsy events like the last presidential debate.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. Yeah! And this is what's happening.
So we spent a few days with Hasan to get his perspective on what Gen Z wants.
If politicians want to appeal to Gen Z, it's not about the memes and streams. It's just like communicate to them that they are worthy of attention and that their desires are valid and that you're actually going to do something.
With 10% of voters under 30 saying they won't be voting in November and 67% of them saying the country is going in the wrong direction, according to our NBC News Stay Tuned poll, both Dems and Republicans are looking for ways to draw this bloc to the voting booth.
A lot of young people, maybe first-time voters, were completely activated in a major way during Black Lives Matter. They were out in the streets, they were protesting, they did the activism, they did the voting, they voted for Joe Biden won, and then what happened? Nothing. Nothing changed in a significant way. It probably discourages a lot of people.
Twitch's audience is largely young men, a demographic that nationally is trending more conservative, according to a poll by Reuters. As streamers like Aiden Ross, who interviewed Donald Trump in August on Kick, appealed to this group.
And do you know what the hits are yet? Do you know?
Hasan is a prominent voice on the left and even streamed from this year's Democratic National Convention.
The way that people depict the left online in these spaces was cartoonish, hysterical, woke scold, like social justice warrior. And I felt like there was no one really representing just like a normal dude who just doesn't want to be an asshole to like random marginalized people, you know what I mean?
Where do you see your role fitting into that? Are you trying to engage the young viewers watching your stream? Are you trying to encourage them to vote?
I think voting is the least important, most consequential thing you can do. It's not the end all be all. I always trust people to vote, of course, but that's not like all these like get out to vote initiatives. They're silly. It's just, if you want to make people vote, you got to offer them something, either party.
Hasan says his goal is to entertain and educate young people while trying to limit the number of folks online from blindly believing misinformation and falling into hateful communities. And he said Twitch has moved on from just gamer bros.
There were a lot of diverse gamers from different backgrounds, but they were not necessarily being represented in terms of their politics. All these like center-right and centrist figures were basically leaning further and further in the right in their politics. Okay, if I can get 100 people to not go down that pipeline and instead be normal about trans people and stop breaking their own brains, like constantly thinking about trans people and what they're up to, then that's good. That's a success for me.
So Maya Eaglin is joining us now. Maya, what are some of the other concerns from young voters in this election season, and what does Hasan think about those?
So, Tom, cost of living is one of the major concerns. Hasan told us that his audience is really worried about that. We've seen that reflected in our own NBC News data, but also this Harvard Youth poll that came out this week. 74% of voters 18 to 29 say they support things like capping prescription drug prices. Majority support eliminating taxes on tips. Healthcare, another big issue. Support for a nationwide law to legalize abortion, and 55% supporting providing $25,000 to first-time home buyers. And a lot of voters right now are just looking for information and in non-traditional places, which Hasan's channel does for many. Tom?
Maya, thank you. Interesting. We appreciate it. Still to come from us, we've got an exclusive sit-down with the billionaire Richard Branson. He's, you know, behind some of the best-known empires in the world with a big V for Virgin on it. Why his next project really might surprise you. We're back. Turning now to a new and broadcast exclusive sit-down with billionaire Richard Branson talking about his latest project. You probably recognize him as the man behind the multi-billion-dollar Virgin Empire. Well, now he's putting his energy into a free online school designed specifically for people of all ages who have dyslexia. And for Branson, this project is personal. Here's what he told our Chloe Malas in tonight's Newsmaker.
Sir Richard Branson has built a multi-billion-dollar empire, a career spanning over 5 decades, producing hotels all over the world, an airline, a record label, a line of cruise ships, even rocketing into space. But something you might not know is that despite his meteoric success, Branson dropped out of school as a teen in England while struggling with dyslexia.
I just looked at blackboards and it was a mumbo-jumbo to me. And I quit school at 15 because I was dyslexic. I didn't know I was dyslexic. It hadn't really been invented when I was at school. And went out into the outside world and learned my education from the University of Life.
But his success brought a different perspective.
Dyslexia is a superpower.
Now announcing his latest project, Dyslexic U.
Oh, that was fun.
What Branson describes as the first free online university for dyslexic thinkers.
Dyslexia helped me strangely by getting me to really concentrate on the things I was good at. So what we're now trying to do is just help other dyslexic kids be able to fulfill their dreams too.
The university currently featuring 2 one-hour courses. Branson's co-founder Kate Griggs saying this is only the beginning.
What exactly will you all be offering?
If you're a dyslexic person, you can go on and learn more about how incredibly successful dyslexic people have used their dyslexic thinking to turbocharge their careers. If you're not dyslexic, you can go on and you can understand how dyslexics think and how you can develop those skills as well to be successful. So eventually it will be everything from banking to advertising and space science to intelligence and spies.
There's even a commencement speech from Branson himself, citing other famous individuals with dyslexia.
Pablo Picasso, Agatha Christie, Muhammad Ali, Steve Jobs.
Branson has spent years on philanthropy with his foundation Virgin Unite to tackle the world's challenges, like climate change and criminal justice reform, and he urges other wealthy people to use their resources and platforms to help others.
Entrepreneurs who've also made money need to put pretty well all that money back into solving the problems of the world. They need to use their entrepreneurial skills to try to solve the problems of the world. If you're in a position where you can speak out about things, it's very important to be
And the giving pledge, though, do you want to urge other individuals in positions like yourself to be signing that? Because
of course, if I take my kids as an example, they do not want to inherit vast sums of money. You know, my daughter helps run our foundation, and she would be delighted to have more money in the foundation to be able to spend in the years to come.
To the parents, to the child that's watching this right now, who doesn't have the answer when the teacher calls on them, who's not doing well in school, or the parent that feels like they don't know where to turn, what do you want to say to them?
Find out one thing that really interests them, and let them put their energy behind that. Don't worry too much if you're exam results are not, are not top of the class. We are slightly different from others, and we should be grateful for it.
Well, there's no arguing with his success. Chloe joins us now. Branson joined forces with, I understand, a global charity made by Dyslexia to launch this university. And this group actually just released a report about how people with dyslexia are needed in the job market, right?
They did, Tom, and the results are fascinating. It's called the Intelligence 5.0 report, and they had over 5,000 respondents from around the world. They did this with YouGov, and here are some of their findings. 73% considered complex problem solving to be the best measure of intelligence. You also have 60% considered being creative and imaginative. I could use that for my job. You too, right, Tom? And 59% having good people and communication skills. So what they're trying to do here, Tom, is to help others who have dyslexia or people that have those in their family with dyslexia not feel like outsiders.
I've interviewed him several times, and he's always charming, and he's always just a delight to be with. Chloe, great report. Thank you very much. That's a wrap for this hour. You can see Hallie Sunday on NBC Nightly News. I'm back here Monday on NBC News Now. Our coverage resumes right now on News Now. Sun is going down here on the East Coast, top of the hour on News Now, and we are coming on the air with a new update on Helene. The deadly storm has now killed more than 40 people, and there are new signs at this hour that the storm is finally slowing down, but it has left a historic path of destruction with record winds and storm surge in some areas. The big concern right now remains the floodwaters that just are not yet receding. We are live across the region. Also at this hour, New York City's mayor pleading not guilty to those stunning federal corruption charges. Our team is live with big questions about Adams' political future. Plus, Vice President Kamala Harris is making her first trip to the southern border in more than 3 years. Why she feels she needs to be on the offensive on immigration from the border. Then in tonight's original, why control of the Senate might run right through a very deep blue state. We're looking at the high-stakes Senate election in Maryland. And our Keir Simmons sits down with the foreign minister of a country that's critical to getting aid for Ukraine, but they are not always on board where he stands on the war with Russia, coming up later in the show. Good day, I'm Tom Costello. I am in for Hallie, and from the Gulf to the Appalachians, millions of Americans are digging out and drying out from the aftermath of Helene. Once a Category 4 storm, now a post-tropical cyclone. The numbers are really concerning. At least 42 people are now dead, including a 4-year-old and 3 firefighters. The storm slammed Florida's Big Bend region with stronger winds than any other time in history. And look at the fire there. That's been a real concern. We've had 20-feet storm surges there, the level that experts say you simply can't survive. Helene sparking fires like this one across Florida, firefighters scrambling to get those under control and get people to safety. With dramatic rescues like right here, the Coast Guard lifting a man and his dog out of the water near Sanibel Island. Thankfully, both of them survived. And somebody who had to literally break out his kayak in his home. Awful. Here's an aerial right now. Tampa recovery teams across the state have been busy, across the state rather, busy all day. But the threat is still active for states further inland, like in Irwin, Tennessee, where helicopters safely rescued nearly 60 people trapped on the roof of a hospital. Atlanta, Georgia just experienced its wettest 2 days in the city's history. We've got NBC drones that have been capturing communities completely covered over, washed over by water. Take a look at new video out of Asheville, North Carolina. Our team there sending this in just the last half hour. Something like 4 million people don't have power across the entire region. We will get to the forecast, and we're going to check on Florida in just a second. Let's start, though, with NBC's Priscilla Thompson. She's in Valdosta, Georgia. We talked to you an hour ago, and you were right in the middle of it there. Can you give us a sense? Are crews starting to pick up a little bit more?
Yeah, Tom, crews have been out since 7 a.m., and so there are blue tarps going on top of some roofs, but I will show you there's still a lot to be done. You look at this massive tree that fell through this house. It looks like it almost dissected it in half, and I'll look right next door, and there's another tree that has clipped that house, and that is what we're seeing throughout this neighborhood. I want to give you a view from up above. We have some drone footage that our team shot earlier today, and you can just see everywhere you look, there are trees down, many of them having impacted homes here. And what's more, the people that we've spoken to today say this is bad, but a very similar situation happened almost a year ago in August when Hurricane Idalia hit, and they were cleaning up after that, and many of them just finished repairing their homes from that. One man told me he spent more than $100,000 fixing the back of his home after trees fell on it last year, and now he had 8 more trees fall in his yard, a number of them hitting the front of his home this year. And so it is just a lot of recovery for folks who say that they are not used to seeing this much damage just back to back from these devastating storms. Tom?
Yeah, does anybody still have power there where you are, or is it virtually a blackout right now as we go into the evening?
Tom, this is a county with about more than 30,000 people, and right now, according to a power outage tracker, there are around 300 people who have power. Officials say 99% of this county does not have power. The governor says that they are working to get generators down here to at least get the street lights turned back on, like the traffic lights. But for now, there is a curfew in place starting at 8 p.m. to avoid some of those issues as we're still dealing with no power across this county. Tom?
If you don't have power, then you're not going to have AC tonight. It's still hot down there in the south. You may not have power for your septic system, right? This is really a very difficult evening. Thank you very much, Priscilla. Good reporting there. Marissa Parra is further south. She's in St. Petersburg, Florida. Marissa, you just got to this area not too long ago, and operators there, I understand, say they received an unusual number of 911 calls overnight. What's the situation looking like now?
Well, I can tell you they did a lot of water rescues, not just overnight, but even today, Tom. I mean, as we started seeing that water recede in so many other communities, we know that here in St. Petersburg, it was still flooded in so many streets to the point where we couldn't even pass through them. You might be able to faintly see a faint line over my shoulder. That's the water line. It comes about here. It's about 4 feet. That was just on this street. Now, over here to my right, you see a house that is clearly burned. There was a fire, a structural fire, and we have had so many reports of house fires, not just here in Pinellas County, but up and down the coastline. And there's different reasons for that, but this one in particular was as a result of a golf cart that came in contact, the lithium-ion battery came in contact with salt water. We know what a fire hazard that can be. We actually had a chance to go out with rescue crews. What you're about to see is video from Hillsborough County that's further north. And we had a chance to talk to the people who were responding all through the night, Tom. We heard so many stories, and I want to take you to what we heard from one of the rescuers himself.
We had young kids, we had pets, we had the elderly. Our unit alone probably rescued over 25 people last night. We have extra squads coming in today. So for the people who worked overnight, they're trying to get people relief so they can go get some rest, go get a meal, go do what they need to do.
Such as yourself?
Yes. And then get them back so we can keep making sure everything's good at home.
And Tom, I will tell you, right now, it feels hard to find a corner of this region that is untouched by Helene in some way, shape, or form. We've heard so many stories of people who have been rescued, elderly people. That gentleman you just heard from told us about a 97-year-old woman that they rescued. They had to carry her out onto this amphibious vehicle that's able to travel through flooded waters, and she was in desperate need of medical attention, and she was able to get it because of them. But when we talk about the way things are right now, I'll point out, we're in St. Petersburg. People here are not able to use, they're not able to use laundry, they're not able to flush their toilets, they're not able to have, water running down the drain. That's because the sewage plant had to temporarily shut down, and it's not going to be able to be used for at least 2 days. So on top of having to clean out their homes, people here on this street basically throwing everything out, Tom. They have lost everything, and it's hot. A lot of people around this region also don't have access to air conditioning, and it's a very hot day. So this is, on all fronts, this is a very difficult situation for so many people, and unfortunately, I'm very sad to hear that your parents are a part of that, Tom.
Well, and you're right. You've also got to throw out everything in the fridge and the freezer, and that costs a lot of money, too. Yeah, it's just a mess. Marissa, thank you very much for your reporting. Let's now go to NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, so the rain is over, but the risks are far from done for people in these regions, right?
Yeah, we still have a threat of flash flooding right through the weekend. Isolated chance of some tornadoes too. So most of the really bad damage has already been done, and we're waiting for a couple of rivers to still crest in areas of North Carolina and also throughout Georgia. But most of the damage is done, sadly, and the cleanup was going to be slow, especially all those big, huge trees down there now in southern Georgia near Valdosta. So the storm itself has made its way all the way up into the middle of Kentucky into literally about less than 24 hours from landfall to Kentucky. This storm moved very quickly, and because it moved so quickly and was so large, it's affected so many people in different ways, from South Florida now all the way into areas of the Mississippi River, from Memphis up to Paducah. This area is still of the greatest concern for what is happening now. Still dire flash flooding happening. Asheville is beginning to see a little bit of improvement. The river is still at record height, so it's not going up anymore, but it's still at record levels. We still have the flash flood emergencies into southern Virginia. Roanoke is now under a flash flood warning. Areas from Norfolk heading up towards Richmond here, you're under a flash flood warning too. Additional rainfall, about 1 to 3 inches possible on top of what you've already had, mostly Tennessee and heading into Kentucky. So tomorrow, it's just going to sit here and spin now. It's going to stop moving. And even as we go into Sunday, this thing's just going to linger, the remnants of Helene, over the top of the Ohio Valley. Not enough probably for a lot of additional problems flooding-wise, but it's just going to linger. We're starting to trim our tornado watches. We do have one tornado warning that's left here just north of the Greensboro area, and we're continuing to watch these storms exiting Norfolk, Tom. So still some isolated concerns out there, but I'd say 99% of the damage is done.
I'm looking at my computer. Asheville, North Carolina, just put a curfew in effect, Bill, from 7:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. beginning tonight, because they're also without power and they've had so much flooding. I heard you say earlier today that Helene, the name itself may be retired, and our climate team had a stunning stat that the country has had 8 Category 4 or 5 storms since 2017, and that's the same number of intense storms that we had in the prior 57 years. So do we chalk all of this up, or at least a lot of it, to climate change?
We can chalk some of it up to climate, and also we go through active periods and inactive periods. I remember before that 2017, we went like 10 years without a major hurricane landfall, and now we're in this hyperactive period. And yes, the name Helene here, you'll never see it on this list again. These names get recycled every 5 years, but when we have horrible storms, they retire that name, and this one guaranteed will be retired. And by the way, we have Isaac and Joyce out there. The next name storm, we're on the K storm. That'll be Kirk. Hopefully not soon, but we'll keep our eyes out next week.
Better than Karen's, Bill. Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. All right, Wall Street in just the last hour has closed out on a high and posting a third straight positive week. Here's where stocks finished the week. The Dow jumping 100 points, closing at a fresh record. The S&P and the Nasdaq pretty much flat on the session. The move comes after some encouraging inflation data was out earlier today. A key inflation gauge that the Fed focuses on shows that the price people pay for goods and services was actually lower than expected for August. CNBC's Mike Santoli joins me now. Mike, you and I go way back. Talk us through now this new inflation data and what it's showing us. And our investors interpreting this now to suggest that the Fed was justified with the last rate cut and maybe more to come.
Yeah, it fits pretty well into that story of the inflation rate receding toward the Fed's 2% target. This is 2.2% year over year today in the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. And given that the Fed has room to cut rates further. Of course, cut rates by 0.5 percentage point last week, probably has another rate cut coming in early November. Maybe it's a quarter, maybe it's a 0.5 point. But the declining inflation thesis has been playing out pretty steadily. It might not feel like it, but the year-over-year rate of inflation is going down, and it's being accompanied by still resilient economic growth. We had some numbers on consumer activity and weekly unemployment claims this week that did bolster the idea that the economy is likely headed for a soft landing.
Yeah, the rate is going down. Prices aren't going down, but the rate is going down.
That's right.
Listen, you know, it's been a 3-week winning streak for Wall Street, and the question is, anybody watching their 401k is asking how high can this go, right? There's been some concern that the market is really too concentrated on just a handful of companies, specifically tech companies. Does that idea still hold? What are the risks right now?
Well, that idea actually perhaps is a little bit less applicable than it was a few months ago. In fact, over the last quarter or so, the big tech stocks have actually underperformed the average stock. So the S&P 500, it's up 20% year to date. That is a very good year, kind of logged in only 9 months' time. But it has not, in the last little stretch of it, relied excessively on those big tech stocks such as NVIDIA and Amazon and the rest. Now, whether we can keep going higher, obviously, we don't know. We had a couple of 5% pullbacks just in the last 2 months, and it happened when we had some maybe less than ideal jobs numbers, made people doubt the soft landing scenario. So that can happen at any moment, of course. But for now, the trend looks pretty positive.
And unemployment still at, what, a 53-year low, something like that, Mike?
Just up off of that, just over 4%, 4.2. Yeah.
Okay, Mike Santoli, thank you very much. New York City Mayor Eric Adams appearing in a Manhattan courtroom in just the last few hours, pleading not guilty to 5 criminal federal corruption and bribery charges for allegedly receiving free travel and illegal campaign contributions in exchange for favors for the Turkish government. Here's a first look now at the court sketches of Mayor Adams before the judge today. In a stunning moment in New York's history, right? Adams is the first sitting Big Apple mayor in modern history to face criminal charges like these. The question now, could these charges force Adams out of office? For now, he is remaining defiant, saying that he's not going anywhere. Let's bring in now NBC's Lisa Rubin. Lisa, what more can you tell us about what's going down in this New York City courtroom here?
Well, today was a really short proceeding. It was only about 15 to 20 minutes long as Mayor Adams was arraigned on those 5 charges, as you just noted. But one thing that I thought was particularly interesting is when he was asked how he pled, he said not I plead guilty or not guilty, but I am not guilty, Your Honor, as a declarative statement. The other notable thing in today's arraignment is that his lawyer, Alex Spiro, vowed to bring a motion to dismiss this indictment on Wednesday when there will be another hearing before the judge permanently assigned to the case, Judge Dale Ho. Usually motions to dismiss don't come so soon in the case, but it's reflective of the overall posture that Eric Adams is taking toward this case, as you just noted.
I heard somebody today say, make no mistake, if the DOJ in the Southern District of New York brings these kinds of charges against the city mayor of New York, they're going to have the facts and their evidence buttoned down tight. Would you agree with that?
I would, and I would even say that even in this 57-page indictment that we have, the facts are buttoned down tight. There are extensive quotations from text messages, and also it appears that the feds have at least one cooperating witness, someone referred to as the Adams staffer. That person appears to be talking to the government rather extensively, and not only talking about their own electronic communications, but about conversations they've had with the mayor as well.
I got only a few seconds. Do you expect that the governor would, in fact, step in and remove him from office?
I think the governor has given Mayor Adams a choice: resign or I'll have to remove you.
Lisa Rubin, thank you very much for that. The Justice Department has also announced charges against 3 Iranian nationals, accusing them of hacking into the Trump campaign. Take a listen now to how the AG described the scope of this attack.
The operation targeted the email accounts of current and former American public officials, journalists, and most recently, individuals associated with U.S. political campaigns.
Attorney General Garland says the hackers tried to give the stolen info to the Biden campaign, part of a bigger effort by foreign governments to interfere in the U.S. presidential election. Garland adds that both the Harris and Trump campaigns are cooperating with the investigation. Let's bring in now NBC's Ken Delanian, who covers the Justice Department. He's on top of the story. Ken, these guys live in Iran. Highly unlikely that they'll ever be arrested unless they decide to vacation in Miami Beach. So what does the DOJ hope to achieve with these charges?
Or go skiing in the Alps, Tom. Yeah, that's right. So the primary objective here is not to bring these guys to justice. It's really to publicize this Iranian interference effort in American politics, and it's part of a series of efforts to do that. There was an indictment of RT a few weeks ago, accused of paying Americans $10 million to spread Russian propaganda. There have been regular intelligence briefings. This is in contrast to what happened in 2016 when the Russians interfered in the election and the U.S. government said nothing about it until much later. They're trying to get the word out, Tom.
We should also underscore that while Iran allegedly gave this information to the Biden administration or the campaign, the Biden campaign, as I understand it, did not do anything with it and handed it over to DOJ, right?
Well, they didn't reply to the emails. That's what that's what the DOJ said. The Biden campaign said they never even opened them, Tom.
Okay, well, disinformation and cybersecurity threats surrounding this election, they're coming from all corners. We got Russia, we got China, we got Iran. How can the feds prepare and then counter this?
That is a great question, and it's one I put to the Attorney General today, which is, if there's a fake video depicting a candidate or depicting problems at a polling place in the 48 hours before the election, what's the government going to do to flag it to the American public? Here's what he said.
It's an all-of-government approach in combination of our intelligence community and the FBI and federal law enforcement. We are working round the clock to ensure that we get the quickest information about such an attempt and that we are able to alert the American public in as close to real time as possible.
The problem, of course, Tom, is that if the FBI says something's fake, there are millions of Americans who may not believe it, given the state of our politics. Tom.
Yeah. All right. NBC's Ken Delanian, thank you very much. Today, the Israeli military says it targeted and struck Hezbollah's headquarters in southern Beirut, with heavy smoke pouring from the strikes in that area. An Israeli official tells NBC News the target was Hezbollah's leader. We don't yet know whether he was killed. The attacks over the last few days have killed more than 700 people in Lebanon. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today defended Israel's strikes in Lebanon during a speech to the UN General Assembly. Take a listen.
As long as Hezbollah chooses the path of war, Israel has no choice, and Israel has every right to remove this threat and return our citizens to their homes safely.
Netanyahu there says Israel will fight until it, quote, achieves total victory. NBC's Matt Bradley is in Beirut with more on today's strikes.
Yeah, we were standing right here at this hotel room, and it was just right over my right shoulder in the southern Beirut neighborhood of Dahia. That is a Hezbollah stronghold, and the Israelis announced that they had struck intending to hit the head of Hezbollah, Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, in what looks like, or what they described as multiple strikes around the same neighborhood. Now, it looks as though multiple buildings were completely destroyed. If you're looking at that footage now, there were a handful of deaths. Those are probably set to go up probably pretty dramatically in the next several hours and days. If you look at that destruction, it was pretty comprehensive. But this is also going to have major political impacts depending on whether or not Hassan Nasrallah was in fact killed. Regardless of whether that happened, it looks as though Hezbollah is probably going to have to respond to this in some way. They've been firing missiles into northern Israel for much of the past year, but they've been intensifying their attacks as Israel has expanded their attacks against Hezbollah in just the past week. It's going to be hard for Hezbollah to differentiate what they've been doing for the past week and really show that they're responding to this attack in Dahia. But it looks as though they have kept quite a bit of their arsenal in reserve, including their more sophisticated weapons, like some of their targeted missiles, which are thought to number in the several hundreds. Whether or not they choose to use them now, or whether or not Israel follows this up with a ground invasion that could lead to even more destruction and possibly many more deaths among the civilian population, well, that is going to determine how things go from here in this very, very volatile situation.
NBC's Matt Bradley. Thank you, Matt. Stay safe. Coming up from us, the fresh pushback from Viktor Orban over controversial comments from his foreign minister. Plus, the new details just into us now about the future of U.S. troops in Iraq. Okay, we're going to talk Hungary right now. This is important. The country's prime minister is pushing back on controversy created by one of his closest aides. Speaking to state radio, Viktor Orban says Hungary always has and always will defend itself against foreign attacks. He's doing some damage control because his political director said Hungary would not have fought against a Russian invasion like Ukraine is doing right now. And Hungary's foreign minister is suggesting another approach, that instead of fighting, Ukraine instead should negotiate he's saying that rather in a new interview with Keir Simmons right there. Take a listen.
The political leaders in Europe still do believe that there is a battlefield solution. We don't believe that there would be a solution on the battlefield. We do think that the solution must be looked after around the negotiating table.
Well, you may recall, ever since Russia invaded Ukraine 2 years ago, Hungary has taken a pretty adversarial role towards its neighbor, trying to block, delay, or water down EU efforts to send financial and military support to Ukraine. NBC's Keir Simmons is joining us now. Keir, the foreign minister told you that he believes former President Trump could play a big role in these negotiations. Kyiv has no interest in negotiating around or away parts of its own country, right?
Well, that's right. And, you know, we should put some caveats in here, shouldn't we? You know, Tom, I mean, Hungary has an energy relationship with Russia that is very, very important to Hungary. So that, I think, impacts their political view. Yeah. That being said, though, they have held out this opinion that there should be negotiations for a long time. And in some ways, I guess you could say the world is coming round to that opinion because of what's happening on the ground. Despite Ukrainians making progress, you know, if you like, from the Ukrainians' point of view, taking some Russian territory in Kursk, the Russians, on the other hand, in Donetsk, are making progress very slowly on that front line. What is fascinating is to hear that, as well as all of that, is to hear the foreign minister really, I mean, the Ukrainians have been criticized in the past week for intervening, if you like, in US politics, but the Hungarians taking sides and openly just saying, we think President Trump would be the best choice because they think that he would be the one that would be able to kind of bring the two sides together. That's what the foreign minister told me. Take a listen.
I think I quote you right. You said, I think only President Trump has the hope, and our hope is all in President Trump to do this.
Yeah, because, you know, maybe we agree on that politics is a job which is based on experience. And so far, 1,000 days have gone, and no political leader of any country in the world could encourage, force, convince the two parties to sit around the same negotiating table.
Now, I mean, the question, Tom, of course, is if President Trump was elected, if he became president from January, if he decided to cut off funding for Ukraine, surely that would put Ukraine in a weak position at that negotiating table. That's one of the arguments that critics of the position that Viktor Orbán and Hungary have been taking make. Orbán traveled to meet President Putin in July, and he traveled to meet former President Trump. So he's able to talk to both sides, but there are many, many critics.
Well, he's not talking to the current president, President Biden, who has orchestrated the EU and NATO to come to Ukraine's defense. Make it clear, Hungary's efforts related to the war in Ukraine have led to accusations from a lot of world leaders, including in the EU and NATO, that Hungary is trying to divide the EU and prop up Russian interests. And you mentioned it. A lot of it is about cheap energy coming from Moscow.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And there is real division in Europe. And I said to him in that interview, what are you going to do if, so say we just play out this scenario, say former President Trump is elected and he cuts off funding, and say the Ukrainians say they want to keep fighting. They just want to keep fighting. What impact would that have on Europe? How divided would Europe be with the Germans and the French, for example, versus the Hungarians? And you know, he said in the end, you know, he kind of said, there was a pause, I guess, and he kind of said, you know, that would be a really unfortunate turn of events, but in the end, the reality is, without American support, and this is, I think, a good place to conclude here, Tom, you know, without American support, Ukraine would really struggle in that fight with Russia. Whatever you think of what's happening on the battlefield and what the solution is, that is a fundamental truth, and I think all sides in Europe accept that.
That's true, but I think a lot of people also think they have a right to defend themselves. They were invaded, 1 million people dead. They have a right to fight for themselves and their families. Keir, thank you very much. Let's get you over now to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about. Tonight, number 1, just in the last couple of hours, the U.S. and Iraqi governments have announced the U.S.-led coalition mission in Iraq is going to end by September of next year. You may recall that coalition was formed about a decade ago to fight ISIS. About 2,500 U.S. troops are in Iraq and another 900 in Syria. We don't yet know how many troops might stay in the country. Number 2, the Minnesota Department of Health announcing today that somebody there has died of rabies after being exposed to a bat in July. It says it's looking into whether anybody else might have been exposed. Rabies is super rare. The CDC says fewer than 10 people in the U.S. die each year from it. Number 3, SpaceX set to launch its Crew 9 mission tomorrow at the earliest after delays because of hurricane-turned-tropical storm Helene. The plan is to send 2 people rather than 4 to the International Space Station for 5 months, then bring back the 2 astronauts who are stuck on the station, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore. They'll be coming back on that flight home in February. Number 4, the U.S. Tennis Association says Billie Jean King was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. She's the first individual female athlete ever to get that. King is one of the greatest tennis players of all time and made a huge impact off the court, as well as a big advocate for equal rights and pay. Number 5, live from D.C., it is almost Saturday night. Yeah, that's right. SNL is back. Season 50 premieres tomorrow from New York, not D.C. Actress Jean Smart is going to host, and Jelly Roll will be the musical guest. Coming up from us, the new video just into us of Vice President Kamala Harris at the southern border as she pushes to make big gains there in a big political vulnerability. Plus, the sentence just getting handed to climate activists over that shocking soup incident. Soup on Van Gogh, that's got more people following their lead. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day. It's awfully tough to read, watch, or listen to everything. So our teams around the world have done it for you and for me. And here's what they're watching. They call it the Global. Out of Japan, the governing Liberal Democratic Party is picking its new leader today, setting him up to become prime minister next week. The 67-year-old is a former defense minister and has run in the party leadership race 5 times. He supports measures to improve gaps between men and women and legalizing same-sex marriage. From the United Kingdom, 3 climate activists throwing soup at 2 of Vincent van Gogh's paintings in London's National Gallery. It comes just hours after 2 members of the same protest group were sentenced to prison for doing the same thing back in 2022. The National Gallery said 3 people were arrested after the incident today, and the paintings, thankfully, were not harmed. And from Poland, the Warsaw Zoo is looking for name recommendations for this baby deer. She's part of the 2nd smallest deer species in the world. Zookeepers are asking for names starting with the letter P to match the other animals that have been born there this year. Penelope, how about that? Vice President Kamala Harris on the ground for a surprise trip to the southern border at this hour. Take a look. She's landing there with agents at the border just in the last couple of minutes. With Harris tonight set to announce tighter asylum restrictions. A campaign official is telling that to NBC News. She's also turning the tables on Donald Trump and taking on his alleged mismanagement of the border. His alleged mismanagement. Harris is looking to boost her own profile by taking a tougher stance on immigration. As you know, it's a political vulnerability for the VP, with many polls showing that voters think Trump would do a better job at securing the border. Meanwhile, the former president is in Michigan tonight holding a town hall there, just hours after meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky and again vowing to make a deal between Ukraine and Russia that, in his words, would be good for both sides, though he was light on specifics. We want to bring in now NBC's Gabe Gutierrez, who is traveling with the Harris campaign in Arizona. Gabe, you've got this new reporting that Harris is going to propose tighter asylum restrictions tonight. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, Tom, well, it's partly due to the Harris campaign really trying to distinguish itself in some ways from the Biden administration. As you said, according to a senior campaign official, Vice President Harris will propose extending the threshold. And you'll recall a couple of months ago, President Biden issued an executive action saying that any time that illegal border crossings rose above 1,500 a day for a 7-day average, anytime that happened, they would essentially shut down the border between ports of entry and suspend asylum applications. Well, what Harris plans to propose is she plans to extend the threshold and make it much longer. So not just a 7-day average, but it will have to be longer. We don't know exactly how much, but it will have to be presumably at least several weeks for that number to drop below 1,500. So essentially making it making it harder in order to apply for asylum. And again, this is something that the Harris campaign has been trying to do, especially over the last couple of months, is really sell the image of Vice President Harris as someone who can secure the border. They've been touting her prosecutorial record, and they hope to trip down here to Arizona today, her second since taking office as vice president, and it was more than 3 years ago that she went to El Paso. They hope this trip can help win over swing state voters, Tom.
Just her second trip down there since becoming vice president. That's interesting. This is a really bold choice from her, right? How could what she says tonight change the perception about how engaged she has been on this issue?
Well, you mentioned it, Tom. The Harris campaign has been trying to flip the script, right? Since earlier this year, former President Trump blocked that bipartisan border deal in the U.S. House. She's been blaming him for that, and Democrats really see this as an opportunity. You know, she still trails Trump widely. According to recent polls, a recent NBC News poll showed her 21 points behind Trump on the issue of securing the border. But, Tom, compare that to President Biden back in January. Our NBC News poll found that he trailed Trump back then by 35 points. So Harris has been an improvement, and Democrats think that if she can at least shave off some of those swing state voters, that it may make a critical difference in a battleground state like Arizona, Tom.
Yeah, and optics can do a lot for you, I guess. Gabe, thank you very much. We're glad to have your expertise. You've spent a lot of time there. Thanks, Gabe. To tonight's original reporting now, in-depth reporting on a topic that we've been watching. And tonight we're looking at a surprisingly tight Senate election that could actually determine the chamber's balance of power in November. We're talking about the race in Maryland, believe it or not, between a Democratic county exec and a nationally known former Republican governor, forcing voters to choose between a new face promising change and a familiar one arguing he is the political center in a very blue state. NBC's Antonia Hilton has more.
In blue state Maryland, where Democratic events often look more like family reunions, there's an unusually tight race that could determine the balance of the Senate. Democrats out in full force.
And the key to the Senate majority runs through Maryland.
Asking voters to send Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks down to Washington and not their popular former governor, Republican Larry Hogan. Vice President Kamala Harris holds a 30-point lead here. A new poll has Alsobrooks up by 11, but others have Hogan within the margin of error. And his approval ratings were as high as 70% when he was governor. How do you reach the split-ticket voters who are planning to vote for VP Harris, but who like Larry Hogan? He was their two-term governor.
Yeah, you know what? This race is much bigger than Larry Hogan. Larry Hogan was recruited by Mitch McConnell because they share a goal in mind. They want Republicans to have control of the Senate.
Voters here say this contest comes down to reproductive rights and who they trust to reject a possible national abortion ban. Maryland has enshrined abortion rights, and the state's clinics serve women forced to travel from out of state.
I come from a state where a lot of the politicians didn't agree with a woman choosing her own medical rights. Women should have that choice.
Hogan, who's endorsed by but has long feuded with Trump, argues voters are tired of division and want to elect someone who'll stand up to both parties.
Hogan will be in the middle of the action, representing the center.
His message to voters, he'll be a sensible voice focused on issues like veterans' needs. But also Brooks warns he won't be as independent on abortion or gun reform in a polarized Senate. How do you convince people to not believe a guy they've known for a long time?
Well, you know what? His record speaks for itself. But what we know also is that if he's elected, we'll never have a vote on Roe because the Republicans in the Senate will never bring it up for a vote.
In 2022, Governor Hogan attempted to veto and then withheld funding from a law to train additional health care workers to perform abortions, citing safety concerns.
Thanks for being here.
In an Axios interview earlier this year, Hogan declined to say how he would vote on IVF or to codify Roe v. Wade.
So is that yes?
Whether it's needed or
yes or no?
No, it wasn't a yes or no.
He now says he will vote to codify Roe. His campaign suggested a date and location to speak with NBC News, then said he was unavailable the day of the potential interview. His team told NBC News it's important for the health of our democracy to have two functioning parties, and that as governor, he made sure access to abortion was never a question for Maryland women. And others aren't sure they trust Alsobrooks, a CNN report finding she claimed improper tax deductions on 2 properties. She tells NBC News this was a mistake made after a move and the passing of her parents, and that she's correcting her payments.
I think you need somebody that's a straight shooter. And unfortunately, in today's world, that is few and far between.
And for many Marylanders, Hogan has the familiar face.
I'm going to vote for Hogan just because I thought he did a good job for governor. I don't really know what Alsobrooks kind of is doing.
Even some Alsobrooks supporters still have affection for him.
I liked him as a governor. I'm not anti-Larry Hogan, but I'm anti what he represents.
They're just not sure he should hold that potentially tie-breaking vote in the U.S. Senate. So there's going to be an amendment on the ballot that's probably going to drive a lot of Marylanders to the polls, and that is question 1. And it's all about reproductive freedom. The question is whether or not women should be able to make decisions and effectuate decisions around their pregnancies, something that Marylanders support in a large majority, a major majority. And so that is sort of an ironic part of this race, right? That this is a state where abortion is already protected. It has become a safe haven for women in states nearby who don't have access to that care, who now need to travel in. But there's so much anxiety there about what could be lost. And so you're seeing voters who have what might sound like a very safe situation or set of circumstances when it comes to that question, actually acting to make sure that in the future, if the balance of power changes, new lawmakers come in and want to restrict abortion, that they would be unable to do so. And that really is emblematic of post-Roe America. You see states like Maryland trying to be 2 steps ahead of what's to come.
Coming up from us, how gamers are keeping up with politics on a super popular streaming platform. Okay, so you might have heard of the streaming platform Twitch, where you can watch people battle in games like Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto. Well, now there's another huge genre on the platform, political commentary. Yep, this is how millions of Gen Zers and millennials have been keeping up with the latest election news. As we've reported on this newscast, Trump sees an opening with young men and is catering towards that community online. So we wanted to introduce you to a mega streamer who is resonating with that same demographic, but he's on the left. NBC's Stay Tuned digital reporter Maya England has the story.
Hasan Piker is not your typical political commentator.
Yeah, I am being patronizing. I don't know who the you are.
You might think of Twitch as a site for gamers, but now millions of people also watch streamers watching the news on the platform instead of traditional TV. And 70% of those users under the age of 35.
Hasan is the biggest political commentator on Twitch.
Hasan's channel, Hasan Abi, was the 3rd most streamed channel globally on Twitch as of August 2024, drawing in over 114 million views and 2.7 million subscribers.
Hasan Abi, he kind of pioneered the space for the style of political coverage he does.
He provides commentary and answers questions live 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for newsy events like the last presidential debate.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. Yeah! And this is what's happening.
So we spent a few days with Hasan to get his perspective on what Gen Z wants.
If politicians want to appeal to Gen Z, it's not about the memes and streams. It's just like communicate to them that they are worthy of attention and that their desires are valid and that you're actually going to do something.
With 10% of voters under 30 saying they won't be voting in November and 67% of them saying the country is going in the wrong direction, according to our NBC News Stay Tuned poll, both Dems and Republicans are looking for ways to draw this bloc to the voting booth.
A lot of young people maybe first-time voters, were completely activated in a major way during Black Lives Matter. They were out in the streets, they were protesting, they did the activism, they did the voting, they voted for Joe Biden won, and then what happened? Nothing. Nothing changed in a significant way. It probably discourages a lot of people.
Twitch's audience is largely young men, a demographic that nationally is trending more conservative, according to a poll by Reuters. As streamers like Aiden Ross, who interviewed Donald Trump in August on Kick, appealed to this group.
And do you know what the hits are yet? Do you know?
Hasan is a prominent voice on the left and even streamed from this year's Democratic National Convention.
The way that people depict the left online in these spaces was cartoonish, hysterical, woke scold, like social justice warrior. And I felt like there was no one really representing just like a normal dude who just doesn't want to be an asshole to like random marginalized people, you know what I mean?
Where do you see your role fitting into that? Are you trying to engage the young viewers watching your stream? Are you trying to encourage them to vote?
I think voting is the least important, most consequential thing you can do. It's not the end-all be-all. I always stress people to vote, of course, but that's not like all these like get out to vote initiatives. They're silly. It's just, if you want to make people vote, you gotta offer them something, either party.
Hasan says his goal is to entertain and educate young people while trying to limit the number of folks online from blindly believing misinformation and falling into hateful communities. And he said Twitch has moved on from just gamer bros.
There were a lot of diverse gamers from different backgrounds, but they were not necessarily being represented in terms of their politics. All these like center-right and centrist figures were basically leaning further and further in the right in their politics. Okay, if I can get 100 people to not go down that pipeline and instead be normal about trans people and stop breaking their own brains, like constantly thinking about trans people and what they're up to, then that's good. That's a success for me.
So Maya Eaglin is joining us now. Maya, what are some of the other concerns from young voters in this election season, and what does Hasan think about those?
So, Tom, cost of living is one of the major concerns. Hasan told us that his audience is really worried about that. We've seen that reflected in our own NBC News data, but also this Harvard Youth poll that came out this week. 74% of voters 18 to 29 say they support things like capping prescription drug prices. Majority support eliminating taxes on tips. Healthcare, another big issue. Support for a nationwide law to legalize abortion, and 55% supporting providing $25,000 to first-time home buyers. And a lot of voters right now are just looking for information and in non-traditional places, which Hasan's channel does for many. Tom?
Maya, thank you. Interesting. We appreciate it. Still to come from us, we've got an exclusive sit-down with the billionaire Richard Branson. He's, behind some of the best-known empires in the world with a big V for Virgin on it. Why his next project really might surprise you. We're back. Turning now to a new and broadcast exclusive sit-down with billionaire Richard Branson talking about his latest project. You probably recognize him as the man behind the multi-billion-dollar Virgin Empire. Well, now he's putting his energy into a free online school designed specifically for people of all ages who have dyslexia. And for Branson, this project is personal. Here's what he told our Chloe Malas in tonight's Newsmaker.
Sir Richard Branson has built a multi-billion-dollar empire, a career spanning over 5 decades, producing hotels all over the world, an airline, a record label, a line of cruise ships, even rocketing into space. But something you might not know is that despite his meteoric success, Branson dropped out of school as a teen in England while struggling with dyslexia.
I just looked at blackboards and it was a mumbo-jumbo to me. And I quit school at 15 because I was dyslexic. I didn't know I was dyslexic. It hadn't really been invented when I was at school. And went out into the outside world and learned my education from the University of Life.
But his success brought a different perspective.
Dyslexia is a superpower.
Now announcing his latest project, Dyslexic U.
Oh, that was fun.
That Branson describes as the first free online university for dyslexic thinkers.
Dyslexia helped me strangely by getting me to really concentrate on the things I was good at. So What we're now trying to do is just help other dyslexic kids be able to fulfill their dreams too.
The university currently featuring 2 one-hour courses. Branson's co-founder Kate Griggs saying this is only the beginning.
What exactly will you all be offering?
If you're a dyslexic person, you can go on and learn more about how incredibly successful dyslexic people have used their dyslexic thinking to turbocharge their careers. If you're not dyslexic, you can go on and you can understand how dyslexics think and how you can develop those skills as well to be successful. So eventually it will be everything from banking to advertising and space science to intelligence and spies.
There's even a commencement speech from Branson himself, citing other famous individuals with dyslexia.
Pablo Picasso, Agatha Christie, Muhammad Ali, Steve Jobs.
Branson has spent years on philanthropy with his foundation Virgin Unite to tackle the world's challenges, like climate change and criminal justice reform. And he urges other wealthy people to use their resources and platforms to help others.
Entrepreneurs who've also made money need to put pretty well all that money back into solving the problems of the world. They need to use their entrepreneurial skills to try to solve the problems of the world. If you're in a position where you can speak out about things, it's very important to be
And the giving pledge, though, do you want to urge other individuals in positions like yourself to be signing that? Because
of course, if I take my kids as an example, they do not want to inherit vast sums of money. You know, my daughter helps run our foundation, and she would be delighted to have more money in the foundation to be able to spend in the years to come.
To the parents, to the child that's watching this right now, who doesn't have the answer when the teacher calls on them, who's not doing well in school, or the parent that feels like they don't know where to turn, what do you want to say to them?
Find out one thing that really interests them, and let them put their energy behind that. Don't worry too much if your exam results are not, are not top of the class. We are slightly different from others, and we should be grateful for it.
Well, there's no arguing with his success. Chloe joins us now. Branson joined forces with, I understand, a global charity made by Dyslexia to launch this university. And this group actually just released a report about how people with dyslexia are needed in the job market, right?
They did, Tom, and the results are fascinating. It's called the Intelligence 5.0 report, and they had over 5,000 respondents from around the world. They did this with YouGov, and here are some of their findings. 73% considered complex problem solving to be the best measure of intelligence. You also have 60% considered being creative and imaginative. I could use that for my job. You too, right, Tom? And 59% having good people and communication skills. So what they're trying to do here, Tom, is to help others who have dyslexia or people that have those in their family with dyslexia not feel like outsiders.
I've interviewed him several times, and he's always charming, and he's always just a delight to be with. Chloe, great report. Thank you very much. That's a wrap for this hour. You can see Hallie Sunday on NBC Nightly News. I'm back here Monday on NBC News Now. Our coverage resumes right now on News Now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.